Good morning. My name is Shenelle Wilson, and I'm the founder and president of Urology Unbound, which is a nonprofit organization that's dedicated to increasing diversity in urology. It's also the subject of my presentation today. Here are my disclosures. So, a little about myself. I completed my residency at MCG in Augusta, Georgia, and recently finished my fellowship in female urology at UAB in Birmingham. I'm currently in practice in Atlanta. So, like many of you, I first got interested in urology during my first year of medical school. However, I went to a school that didn't have a home urology program. So I didn't have academic faculty or mentorship when I was trying to pursue the field. In fact, I was one of the first two students to ever match into urology. So when I got into residency, I first planned on pursuing a career in academics, in large part due to my experiences as a medical student. Um, some of you may recognize that guy standing in the middle there. That's my brother, Brandon Wilson. He's currently at home awaiting his match results anxiously, like a lot of other students. And I'm hopeful that in the summer, he'll be training with one of you and one of Urology Unbound's first success stories. So many of you may not have heard of Urology Unbound, but you may have heard of our student group, the R. Frank Jones Urology Interest Group. So I wanted to provide some clarity before we get into the meat of the talk. So there's the R. Frank Jones Urological Society, which is a professional society with independent governance and leadership, currently headed by Dr. Tracy Downs, with a mission to support Black urologists. Then there's the R. Frank Jones Urology Interest Group, which is the student group affiliated with my organization. Both of these entities were named after Dr. Richard Francis Jones, who in 1936 became the first African American diplomat of the ABU and was also the first chair of Howard University's urology residency program. So our mission is that we work to increase the recruitment, retention, and promotion of Black and underrepresented minority urologists. In preparing for this talk, I was looking at the SAU's website, and I saw that the SAU provides academic urologists with a forum to discuss, review, and potentially resolve critical issues in all aspects of academic urology. And so I want to thank the SAU for recognizing that the lack of diversity in our field is a critical issue and giving me a platform to discuss my nonprofit organization and how we're working to address things. So as we ask the question about diversity in urology and why we're so far behind, it's important for us to first know how far behind we are. In the 2019 US Census, white people accounted for 60% of the population, where Blacks accounted for 13.5%, Latinx 18.5%, Asians 6%, and women were about half the population. In that same year, the population of the urology workforce demonstrated an overrepresentation of white and Asian urologists with an underrepresentation of Black, Latinx, and women urologists. Now, I know in our field, we've recognized this lack of diversity for some time, and so we've done things to try to address it. But when we look at the trainee population in 2019, we see that while diversity is improving in some categories, it's essentially the same in some others. So when we look at our trainee class, we see near concordance representation for white residents, but we see increased overrepresentation of Asian residents with continued underrepresentation of Black, Latinx, and female residents. So this photo was taken at SUFU last year in 2020, and the 16 Black urologists here represent 6% of the current Black urologist population. And for effect, this would represent 1% of the current Asian urologist population and 0.002% of the current white urologist population. Currently, there are about 250 Black urologists, and for us to reach population concordance within our field, it would require us matching 75 Black residents every single year for the next 20 years with no attrition of the current workforce to make up the nearly 1,500 urologist deficit. Similarly, with about 500 current Latinx urologists and needing 2,300 Latinx urologists to reach population concordance, it would require matching 92 Latinx residents every year for 20 years to make up that deficit. And so, Urology Unbound, the way we carry out our mission is that we help residency programs struggling with diversity recruit and retain Black and minority urologists. We recognize that the challenge is great and that there's no one solution that exists to solve this issue, but we want to work with you to do our best to address this. And we've got a goal that within 7 years, our trainee classes can better represent the population, the general population. So now that we know how far behind we are in urology and where our goal should be, let's look at some of the barriers that are preventing diversity from being achieved. So a study published last year in the orthopedic literature asked program directors which of the following were perceived barriers to recruiting minorities into their residencies. And they identified these barriers as not having enough minority faculty, consistently ranking minorities high but never seeming to match them. Not enough minorities were applying to their programs. They're not intentionally or specifically trying to recruit minorities, or that the objective data, such as STEP scores and AOA status for minority applicants, often didn't reach the threshold required to rank to match. So now we'll look at 3 of those barriers in further detail. So when it comes to not having enough minorities who are applying, the way Urology Unbound is working to address this is through our R. Frank Jones Urology Interest Group. As at the end of 2020, we had 66 registered members, 51 of whom were Black, 39 were women, and over 15 were Latinx. Also, 39 of them are current applicants, while the rest of them are in other stages of their training. Now, in the group, we work with our members in the areas of professional development, research, and networking. We organized multiple virtual events that were hosted by a variety of early to late career minority and non-minority faculty. We also put on an application polishing program in which students were partnered with faculty volunteers who reviewed their CVs, edited personal statements, and were able to answer general questions the applicants had about the upcoming interview season. We hosted a mock virtual interview weekend that was moderated by our volunteer program coordinator in order to closely simulate the real interview day. Applicants were given immediate verbal feedback on their performance and also given the opportunity to practice interview techniques that we discussed during those sessions. The group is also about preparing them to demonstrate their grit and increase successful scholarship by connecting them to established research networks. We're also creating research opportunities within the group itself and collaborating with academic faculty from around the country. Finally, we are providing our student members with access to a robust network of urologists, both locally and remote, and encouraging them to develop their own community. We'll be rolling out a peer mentoring program next week that will partner underclassmen students with upperclassmen, as well as student members with current urology trainees, so that students have multiple sources of information and resources as they pursue urology. And the feedback we've gotten so far has been overwhelmingly positive. The students have remarked about the confidence they've gained in the strength of their applications, as well as the positive effect interacting with supportive academic faculty urologists has had on their resolve to pursue the field. So the next barrier that we'll discuss is not having enough minority faculty. And this gives me the opportunity to highlight a timely article that was published last year that resonated with many Black attendings and trainees. In this article, some of the reasons given for the rate of Black faculty attrition included a lack of mentorship and sponsorship, barriers to promotion and advancement, a lack of a supportive and at sometimes hostile work environment, and also being expected or told to execute diversity efforts without getting recognized or compensated for this invaluable work. This may explain not only why many leave, but also provides us some insight into why many trainees don't bother going into academics in the first place. At Urology Unbound, we are developing multiple initiatives to support minority trainees and faculty. We will be hosting the first annual Urology Unbound Bootcamp for incoming and current minority trainees. We're also developing an in-service study curriculum, providing them with career mentorship and networking, and research education and development. For faculty, We have a growing network of support that we hope will lead to increased mentorship and sponsorship. This network will also allow faculty to pool their collective resources to help support ongoing diversity efforts. We also have multiple opportunities for faculty interested in researching or helping to develop this pipeline, or interested in becoming a research mentor for our students and trainees. And now for the last and perhaps most crucial barrier to increasing diversity in urology, and that's not intentionally recruiting Black or underrepresented minority students. Developing an intentional and active strategy to diversify your residency cohort, it requires planning and active intervention and continuous assessment. But no matter where you are on the spectrum of moving towards active recruitment and allyship, Urology Unbound is here to help you. And we hope to work in collaboration with the SAU in order to diversify our trainee cohort so that it better mirrors the population we serve. And so, what are some ways in which you can get involved? One of the easiest and most impactful ways to get involved is to spread the word about us and to send minority students, trainees, and faculty who could benefit from all that our organization has to offer. Students can email us or visit our website to sign up for our mailing list. We are also looking for faculty and program coordinators to volunteer with us and become a resource for our student and resident members. Volunteers can email us at urologyunbound@gmail.com or sign up for our mailing list on the website. I would also like to personally thank all of the faculty volunteers who gave their time, suggestions, and feedback throughout this interview season with all of the programs we put on. I hope that this list of volunteers continues to grow as Urology Unbound does. The students have been so appreciative of how approachable and encouraging you all have been, and I am truly, truly grateful for all of your efforts. Finally, if you have ongoing research projects or are interested in becoming a research mentor to our students, please reach out as well. Thank you all so much for this opportunity and for your attention.